Hello everyone, welcome to Studio Science. My name is Surinder Chaudhary. In today's workshop, I have brought to you a particular type of question that we are going to discuss in details, and that type of question is match the headings. Well, it confuses a lot of students because in match the headings, you have been given a number of headings that are obviously more than the options you have available in questions. So it might confuse you sometimes. So in this workshop, I am going to take a real examination that appeared in IELTS, and the title is Beginning of Football. You might have practiced it a number of times. So we are going to discuss in details today that how can we establish the right heading from the list with the right paragraph. So let's see how the questions appeared in the examination. Okay, in front of you, you have a complete list of headings. These are 10 in number. On the other side, there are 8 questions. 8 questions are corresponding from paragraph C to paragraph J, and you have to give the right answer from this list to these paragraphs. According to the instructions, you have to pick one heading from here, and that you can give to the corresponding question. So this is how the questions appear in your IELTS examination. Okay, so what should be the strategy? What should be the approach to match the heading questions? So I always suggest my students that if you are doing match the headings, the thorough reading is absolutely necessary. If you completely read your paragraph, you will be able to find the right answer, because match the heading requires you to actually find the crux of that paragraph, the main idea of that paragraph. Only then you will be able to find the right answer. Otherwise, answers are many times very confusing, looks like very similar to one another, and this will create a lot of problems for you when you are actually attempting your reading. Okay, so we will move to our workshop in detail now, and our first paragraph is paragraph C, because A and B are not asked in question. So we will directly move to paragraph C, and we will read the entire paragraph, and then we will try to match it with the list of headings that has been given alongside it. Okay, what paragraph says? It says another form of the game, also originating from the Far East, was the Japanese kemari, which dates from about the 5th century and is still played today. This is a type of circular football game, a more dignified and ceremonious experience requiring certain skills, but not comparative in the way the Chinese game was, nor is there the slightest sign of struggle for possession of the ball. The players had to pass the ball to each other in a relatively small space, trying not to let it touch the ground. So eventually, this is everything that paragraph says, that there is a particular game. Its name is Kemari. It is not only an old game, but it also survives today. It is still played today. And further, how is it played? What is the nature of the game has been explained in the entire paragraph. So let's try to find its right heading. How can we do that? Okay, if we look at first heading, it says limited success in suppressing the game. No, hasn't been talked about. Opposition to the role of football in schools. No, not talked. A way of developing moral values. No moral values are defined in this. Football matches between countries. No, hasn't been mentioned. A game that has survived. Survived means it is still being played. So eventually the paragraph said the same thing. So I would take fifth option as an answer to my question number 1, that is paragraph C. So let's see the answer. Here it is. Some of the markers you can pick from the paragraph, the game that was talked about, and it is still played in current era as well. So fifth is the right answer. Okay. Moving ahead to paragraph D, I have marked, because I will also ask you to apply this strategy. The answer which has already been given, right, which you have already marked to some paragraph, please underline it, so that when you are going through these headings once again, you don't have to waste your time on those answers which has already been taken. So remember that. That is why I have highlighted it already before solving our next question. Okay, we will move to our next question now. It says the Romans had a much livelier game, Harpert sum. Each time member had his own specific tactical assignment, took a noisy interest in the proceedings and the score. The role of the feat was so small as scarcely to be consequence. The game remained popular for 700 or 800 years, but although it was taken to England, it is doubtful whether it can be considered as a forerunner of the contemporary football. Another type of game has been defined here, that is entitled as Harpatson. No doubt, they say it remained very popular, but it is doubtful that is it really the forerunner. Forerunner means the previous version of a contemporary football. Contemporary means the one which has been played right now, right? Is it really the previous version of that? This is absolutely doubtful. So let's try to establish that connection again. Limited success in suppressing the game? No. Opposition to the role of football in schools? Again, no. A way of developing moral values? Not mentioned. Football matches between countries? Has not been mentioned at all, right? Separation into two sports? No. No way it has been talked about here. Proposals for minor improvements? No. Attempts to standardize the game? No, no standard has been established here in this entire paragraph. Probably not an early version of football. This is the right answer. Why? Because no doubt they say this game remained very popular for a considerable time period, but it cannot be considered as a forerunner, means the previous version of contemporary football. So obviously it is not the early version of football. So this will be my right answer. You can clearly see the marker words associated with the question itself. Oh, sorry, the answer option itself. Okay, so that was the answer for paragraph D, question number 2. Moving to question number 3, that is paragraph E, what it contains. Let's read that. The game that flourished in Britain from 8th to the 19th centuries was substantially different from all previous known forms. So they say that the game which flourished from this time to this time was different from all previously known forms. Why? It was more disorganized, more violent, more spontaneous, and usually played by an indefinite number of players. Frequently, the games took the form of a heated contest between whole villages. Kicking opponents were allowed, as in fact was almost everything else. It was a kind of game where there was no rules allowed, followed, I would say. In this game, no rules were followed at all. So eventually, let's try to make the connection with the given options. Okay, we will start from the beginning. Limited success in suppressing the game. Now, opposition to the role. Now, a way of developing moral values. Obviously, there were no rules followed, so there is no question of moral values. Football matches between countries. Uh, Obviously, villages were there, countries were not there. Separation into two sports, no. Proposals for minor improvements, not at all. Attempts to standardize the game hasn't been talked about. A chaotic activity with virtually no rules. That's what I was talking about. The entire paragraph says that it was a kind of game where there no rules were followed. So option number 10 will be my right answer for question number 3, paragraph E. Moving ahead, this is the right answer in front of you. You can correlate the things which are mentioned in the paragraph and in answer option. Next question, that is paragraph F, that says there was tremendous enthusiasm for football even though the authorities repeatedly intervened to restrict it as a public nuisance. In the 14th and 15th centuries, England, Scotland, and France all made football punishable by law because of the disorder that commonly accompanied it, or because the well-loved recreation prevented subjects from practicing more useful military disciplines. None of these efforts had much effect. So eventually, what did it do? In this part, they say that even authorities of a number of countries tried to restrict the football as a public sport because it created nuisance, as well as it prevented people from participating in some so-called useful activities. But lastly, they say none of these efforts had much effect on the game. So now let's try to make the connection between this main idea and the given heading options. It says limited success in suppressing the game. Spot on. This is the right answer because they tried to suppress it, but it was not suppressed at all. There was no such effect on this game. No doubt a number of efforts were made. So eventually, option 1 is the right answer for this question, paragraph F. Okay, you can pause it. You can also establish the same connection by yourself and then you can proceed in the video. Moving ahead, paragraph G has something to say. It says, the English passion for football was particularly strong in the 16th century, influenced by the popularity of the rather better organized Italian game of calcio. English football was as rough as ever, but it found a prominent supporter in the school headmaster Richard Mulcaster. He pointed out that it had positive educational value and promoted health and strength. Mulcaster claimed that all that was needed was to refine it a little, limit the number of participants in each team, and more importantly, have a referee to oversee the game. So, this paragraph says that there was a person, Richard Mulcaster, who saw the positive side of football, but he said that it needs a little number of improvements in it. So, if you do that, this will be a great activity for both health and strength of the people. So, let's try to make the connection between this main idea with the given headings. Okay, first one says, opposition to the role of football in schools. No, in schools there was no opposition, rather a school headmaster supported it. A way of developing moral values. Development was there, but of health and strength, but not of moral values. Football matches between countries, out of question. Separation into two sports hasn't been talked about. Proposals for minor improvements. Right answer. Because Richard Mulcaster was the person who suggested that these improvements should be made in the game of football. So eventually, I would mark it as my right answer. Proposals for minor improvements. Moving ahead, paragraph H. In paragraph H, the game persisted in a disorganized form until the 19th century when a number of influential English schools developed their own adaptations. Not literally schools, but the schools of football. The groups, you can say. In some, including rugby school, the ball could be touched with the hands or carried. Opponents could be tripped up and even kicked. It was recognized in educational circle that as a team game, football helped to develop such fine qualities as loyalty, selflessness, cooperation, subordination, and deference to the team spirit. A game's cult developed in schools, and some form of football became an obligatory part of the curriculum. Here they are talking about the uses of football in the development of certain qualities in people, and those qualities are known as loyalty, selflessness, cooperation, subordination, and deference to the team spirit. Now let's try to make that connection with the given headings. Okay, option 2, opposition to the role. No, a way of developing moral values. Exactly, all these qualities that we are talking about are the moral values, and during the game, these moral values are developed among the participants. So eventually, the option 3 will be the right answer. Okay, you can also make that connection yourself too. Okay, paragraph I. What does it say? Let's read. In 1863, developments reached a climax. At Cambridge University, an initiative began to establish some uniform standards and rules that would be accepted by everyone. But there were essentially two camps. The minority rugby school and some others wished to continue with their own form of game, in particular, allowing players to carry the ball. In October of the same year, 11 London clubs and schools sent representatives to establish a set of fundamental rules to govern the matches played amongst themselves. This meeting marked the birth of a football association. So, at this given time, there were some attempts which actually meant to implement some uniform standard rules that would be applied and accepted by everyone. For that, a number of efforts were made, and finally, there was an outcome that Football Association was established. Okay, let's try to find the actual topic for it, actual title for it. It says opposition to the role of football in schools, again irrelevant. Football matches between countries, irrelevant. Separation into two sports. They are talking about two sports here. One was rugby, one was football. But the main idea is somehow not supporting this heading. There is a passing reference to it, but it is not directly supporting this. So we will move further. Attempts to standardize the game. So these were some of the attempts that were made to make the standard rules and regulations associated with the game. So eventually I would mark option 8 as an answer to paragraph I. There the connection is in front of you and you can make the connection yourself too by pausing the video. Okay, paragraph J, our final paragraph of this workshop. And in this paragraph, it says, the dispute concerning kicking and tripping opponents and carrying the ball was discussed thoroughly at this and subsequent meetings. Until eventually on 8th December, the die-hard exponents of the rugby style withdrew, making a final split between rugby and football. With 8 years, the Football Association already had 50 member clubs, and the first football competition in the world was started, the FA Cup. So eventually, this is the part where rugby and football were split, because two types of games were established, because those who wanted to follow the rules connected with rugby didn't want to participate in the rules associated with football itself. So two games were separated from each other. So let's try to make that connection once again. Opposition to the role of football. Now football matches between the countries. Again, there is no relevance. Separation into two different sports will be the right answer. So you can make that connection once again by pausing this video, and this will be the right answer for paragraph J. All right, so this was a workshop associated with solving match the heading questions, because if you read your paragraphs carefully, if you read them in depth, you will certainly make a connection with the right heading that has been given alongside it. And if you apply these methodologies, you will never have any problem in solving such type of questions.